Hello.
Hey everybody, this is Metaphysical Matters with Angela Moore. I'm Kim Clark, and while we're waiting for folks to join us, we're just going to just kind of shoot the breeze for a few minutes. And we thought what we might start doing while we're in this waiting phase, waiting for folks to join us, is talk about a few news of the weird kind of items. And I found something. It seems like we always end up starting out talking about UFOs. And here we go again. But I don't know if you saw this article or not.
Did not.
Okay. Snake-like UFOs seen across the United States could be military craft used by Space Force. Now, of course, that could be military craft used by Space Force is somebody's conjecture. But the fact is, there have been 3 different sightings of these snake-like UFOs. One in California, one in Colorado, and one in Washington. There's video of them. You can see them online if you go look. And this article came from the Daily Mail, I think. And you guys know, if you surf around much, the Daily Mail loves their news of the weird. But I think they're generally, it's not like they just print anything and everything. But I just want to get your take on it. These, unfortunately, the video didn't print. I'll have to try again next time. But the UFOs that have been seen across the United States, like I said, there's 3 different videos of them. Snake-like and very plasma-looking. What do you get off of that?
I have wondered before about stuff like that, and I hadn't seen these articles or anything, but sometimes it actually feels to me like a life form in and of itself. It makes me wonder if there are unknown life forces that are at the edge of our reality or our world that maybe are that's where they dwell. And then, it makes me wonder then about maybe the ancient Chinese and dragons. Maybe this is something the dragons are based on. Maybe this is our modern version of a dragon, and maybe where they saw this and said dragons, we see this and say Space Force. And maybe it's again something that's just checking into our world, and this is the way they use it, the orb, not the orb, the what do you call it, the probe that they use. But all I can tell you is when I think about it, I just feel like I feel a life force connected to it, either because it is a life force, because it is a life force connected through the use of it as a probe, or something that is visiting, or all the above belongs there. I feel like it belongs there, though. I don't feel like it's new, and I don't think it belongs. I mean, that it doesn't belong. I think that it is where it's supposed to be, no matter what. Even if it turns out it's a new military craft that we invented, it still feels like it is where it's supposed to be. And it does feel plasma-like and changeable. And I doubt it is man-made, to be honest. I do doubt it, but who knows? I'm hillbilly on the side of the road, what do I know?
You guys that are just joining us, what we were talking about to start out with is I just had pulled this news article that snake-like UFOs have been seen across the U.S. 3 on video. They're on YouTube if you want to look them up. In California, Colorado, and Washington. And the video shows they're like elongated lights in the sky, and they're just kind of moving a little bit, like a snake. And I'd ask Angela what she thinks about that. It's interesting that you say that they feel like they're alive in and of themselves. I think it was the craft that was found at Roswell, but once I started really examining that craft, there were no controls in that craft.
So I have said for years that I don't know if it's ones with this bunch or with the other, because there's more than one bunch of others, okay? But I've said for years they travel through thought. They travel through thought. The end.
Well, what they decided is they were trying to reverse engineer the craft that they found at Roswell, and I think other places too. Was that all they had to do is think about where they wanted to go, and the craft would take them there. It was almost like it was a body instead of a craft.
See, nobody told me this before that I remember, because we all know how my memory is these days. But that's what I've said for years. They travel through thought, and that's how they communicate with us. They put these thoughts and stuff in our minds. I think they actually have the ability to use telepathy to convey whatever it is they're feeling. And I think, though, that because of our emotional makeup, it seems to color the way we process our thoughts, which makes it sometimes a difficult connection. That's the best I can say. I know that's weird.
So the more emotional we are, the safer we are from the spaceman?
I don't know if we're more safer or just more of an object of curiosity.
How interesting. I did not expect you to go in that direction at all. Wow, that's really interesting. Well, what we had originally talked about, talking with you guys about today here on Metaphysical Matters with Angela Moore, was we were going to share an orb photo, and you didn't get that printed out. Do you want to talk about that now or wait?
A lot of people, and these are uploaded to my website and also to my YouTube channel. So you can go on my website or YouTube channel, or you can go to my personal page here if you haven't seen it and just scroll back. But for the people that haven't, it was, what are we talking about? Oh, yeah, the orbs. I have lost it.
The aliens got in there.
They did. Actually, that's another story. I will tell you if you'll remind me about that.
I better write it down because they're going to get in my head too.
We had the doorbell. Thank you. Good Lord, I was just lost there for a minute. We had the doorbell, which is typical, and it has to be brought into charge. It's a camera one. And it was laying on the coffee table, and I noticed that the light keeps coming on to let me know. And I thought, well, maybe the light's coming on because, it's just saying it's charging or whatever. So I get to looking at it, and sure enough, on my phone, it's where it sends the pictures, that it was picking stuff up. And I sat there and watched it for a long time, and it was orbs shooting left and right. And I mean, I just missed one because I tried to record it, and I did record it. That was huge, but there's a huge one on there too, and it's like obvious that it's like they're going zigzag and everything else. And I think wherever I am, I stir things up. So I think, and this wherever I am, stuff is happening. So I do think that maybe there was something going on in there that was interesting. Now, it hasn't happened since. It didn't happen before. It was just this one time. But anyway, I thought I would post that, and I did, and probably a lot of you have already seen it. But if you want to see it again, go back. I do think that spiritual beings do travel also through thought, and I do think that the natural shape is an orb. So I think while sometimes orbs are just insects or they're just, dust reflections or definitely water, sometimes none of that stuff will just say this is what this orb is. So in this case, because of the way it moved, and there were more than one, there was more than one. It's like they're holding a meeting over here. I think that something interesting might have been happening.
I got an orb one time in a photograph that I took at my parents' house after my mom had passed away, and we moved my dad to a facility. I don't know. I like to tell myself it was my mom, but I don't know.
Well,
is an orb ever, a deceased loved
one?
I
think it can absolutely be. I think, again, this is the natural form a spirit takes. I mean, I think that, yes, they can actually assume the form that makes sense to them in life. I think that takes more energy. But since Anne's body, I think this is the natural shape for all interdimensional beings. Yeah, okay, I'm going with that.
Okay. Is the capturing of an orb with a camera, is that always going to be an accidental thing, or can you kind of figure out where you might see one and aim a camera there?
Oh, I think you can absolutely, you see something, you feel something, you hear something, take a picture. That happens a lot to the people that see me and tell me things, that you can absolutely capture stuff on film, by and a lot of times it might be an orb, and sometimes it might be a shadow figure. It might be a lot of things, but yeah, you can purposely get them if they allow it, and maybe sometimes they don't know, maybe it's just random, and maybe they aren't aware of what we are doing about that, or maybe they don't even know they're being seen. But yeah, I think you can try, see what happens.
Is digital photography, you think, more likely to capture them? Seems that way to me.
I think probably, I won't say for sure, because I do think that, there's a picture of me with my mother when I was an infant and like newborn, and it's old, so I noticed as soon as I saw this picture, because it disappeared and reappeared years later, there is an orb in that picture right over me, right over us. So I'm thinking, even then, something's going on here. So I do think that the older cameras, maybe, I don't know, I actually think maybe equally able to catch stuff.
Because I have heard people who, there's a few people who are kind of ghost chasers, and they talk about using those. Of course, I know ghosts are going to be different than orbs, probably, but they use those old Polaroid cameras, where the picture develops right there, and they seem to think that that's the best way to capture a ghost.
Hey, it could be. If you go online and look, there's all kinds of stories and films, especially that little girl, that picture before and after, nothing there. Then one right behind her, there's somebody that looks like in a beekeeper suit or an astronaut. You've seen that one, I'm sure.
I have not seen that.
Oh my God, it's famous, and they actually sent this to the Polaroid company. They don't know. They don't know what it is. And, it's like, okay, I swear I thought, okay, it's a beekeeper, because they showed a beekeeper suit, and I thought, that's what it is. But if it is, why wasn't he in the first and second? How could he disappear? So, I don't know. Look it up.
Could an orb be somebody traveling out of body?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Okay, well, that segues us beautifully into one of the main things you wanted to talk about today, which is out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, well, some people had mentioned it to me, and I thought it was a good idea. And yeah, I think out-of-body, you could materialize somebody, but honestly, I also think you can materialize somebody as your form that you're known by, because you're actually still so connected to this realm, to this body. What's weird, Kim? You said this happened to you, and I've had 2, 3, or more other people say, I swear, I'm sorry. I feel like I let everybody down when I talk about this stuff. It's like I thought you was more normal than that. Where they felt me at their home, oddly enough, like tucking them in bed.
Okay,
stuff like that.
I'm just going to tell you what happened with me, because
Okay.
it was so bizarre. It's not too long after I first came to you for a reading, very shortly after that first time. I was lying in bed in the morning. I was in that place where it's time to get up, but you don't want to get up. So that's where I was. And all of a sudden, I felt something take the sheet and just pull it off, like just dramatically pull it off, okay? And I looked up, and this is in that halfway place. I'm not saying this actually happened in the physical realm. And I looked up, but I was not asleep. And there was this giant, tall being there. It was kind of like this, and looked very like some type of creature. I'm not, a little bit scaly. I don't know, but not scary. Scaly, but not scary. And anyway, it had thrown the sheets off, and I was terrified. And then I heard you go, "Shh, it's okay, it's just me."
I hope I wasn't the one doing the weird thing. I hope I was. Well, that's just weird. News to me too, people. I knew I did something, but I didn't know it was that. But I did.
And you had help.
I did. Oh, okay. I had help, because I'm not the scary beastie thing.
No. You weren't the scary beastie thing. Kind of like said, "Hey, she's here," that kind of thing.
Oh, maybe a pet.
Not really.
Not really.
It was a scary pet. I'll say
Well, that's crazy. But I don't know. I'm just saying these are things that I have had happen, and people have said happen. But usually, like somebody said, they saw my face materialize, for example, in a thing. That the thing about this is, they didn't feel freaked out or scared. They all felt comforted. And I don't remember it. I don't know that I did it. Now, there's such a thing as pretender spirits, and I've seen this. Now, Kim, sometimes people have passed away, then somebody later comes and says that they're having all these terrible things happen, that they're seeing this loved one, and it's horrible and just bad. And it's pretender spirits sometimes will assume a form, but the reason they do that, they want to take advantage of your energy. They could be very dangerous. And they will use seduction, and I don't mean sexual seduction, I mean seduction like of your grief and whatnot, to make you trust them, when all they really want is to have control. I mean, there's certain things that are going around out there in other realms that would like to have what you have, which is your life force. And one way they can do that is to sucker you into believing something that they can trick you. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, people often tell me, that I'll be doing a session with somebody and say, "You are out of your body a lot." And I say, "I know. I never have surprised anybody, I don't think, by saying that. Maybe, I don't remember. But 90% of the time, anyway, I'm getting, yeah, I know. I do that." And a lot of people have experienced like waking up, and maybe you have, where you're you're out of your body. It's like you can maybe see your body laying there. They say that there's a silver cord that connects you to that. Probably there is. And now I'll tell you, I've actually felt this with people too. Like, for example, people with Alzheimer's or some sort of dementia, or even in a coma, something like that. You can feel, or I have felt these beings, the people that belong to these bodies standing there with their body, or you can maybe find them far, far away from their body, but they're still connected to their body. And when they're out, it's like, the blinders that we have here are down, and they can see, feel, and know, and all this stuff where we can't. But when they're back in their body, of course they can't. But they're not allowed to go on. When they go back inside their self, they're back to this state again. But they're not really allowed to go. And so that's something I have felt. But yeah, some people actually practice leaving their body for whatever reason, or they want to get a sense of their astral soul, spirit, whatever, your astral body. Maybe they think it helps them to achieve some sort of higher level of spiritualism or mysticism or something. And yeah, go ahead.
Have you ever had an out-of-body experience?
I believe I have. Because of what you just said, and other people have told me seeing me there. I believe I have.
But you don't remember being out of body.
But I have had sensations where I absolutely, oh my God, I just remembered one. One time when I lived at what used to be a hospital here, it was haunted. I'll tell you about it sometime. I got stories, people. Anyway,
that's why we're here.
I dreamed that, I didn't dream. I woke up, you know how you are in that halfway sleep step, right? So I wake up and I'm pleasant. I'm actually got my hands like this. I'm laying on my back, but it's like I'm in a swimming pool almost. It's like the bottom half of me is like right here, like normal feeling. The top half of me, I feel like like I said, almost like I'm in a swimming pool. It's like I'm just kind of floating here, and it felt really good. I actually liked the way it felt. And I remember looking over at the door and seeing Dusty just walking, who was a little boy, walking down the hall with his sheet. He's carried a sheet around everywhere. And I just thought, well, there he goes. It's fine. And that was it. And I must have went back to sleep or whatever. I don't remember now. But the thing is, I kind of just forgot about it. But the next morning, Dusty came and told me, he says, I had the weirdest dream last night. I dreamed I was walking down the hall. He says, but I looked down and my feet weren't touching the floor. He says, I was trying to make them touch the floor, but he says they weren't touching the floor. And that was it. That was the only dream he had about it. However, and I had totally forgotten this. Later, what was really weird, another time, I'm sitting in the living room and I look down and I see Dusty with his sheet. So evidently we carry images of whatever it is that we have, our clothes, our hair, whatever, when we're in that state. But anyway, he comes down the hall, turns into the kitchen, or the bathroom rather, and I'm, waiting for him. He comes back down the hall and goes into the kitchen. And so I'm sitting there, waiting for him to come out, and he didn't. I didn't hear anything. 2 or 3 seconds later, I hear Dusty come down the hall, go to the bathroom. I hear it flush this time, and then actually come down the hall and go into the kitchen. And then I'm hearing all kinds of rattling and carrying on because he's getting cereal. I saw his self precede himself. I sat there and watched it broad daylight. I saw it. I didn't think, oh, there's a spirit. I thought, there's Dusty. And then I'm thinking, what the heck? There's Dusty. So those two things happened. And I think that place was so filled with spiritual energy that it actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Created the right circumstances, provoked things into happening. That's what I think.
Well, I would think that about an old hospital. Because there would be people, spirits coming and going.
But I do think you can go far away. I actually did one on purpose that I've told you about, where you can actually go out into the universe, because the farthest place is as far as you can think it. That's it. If you can think it, you can be there. Okay, so I had a technique, if you want me to teach it.
That's one of the questions I had. A technique for having an out-of-body experience.
Well, this is not to have an out-of-body experience exactly. It is to teach you how to get in touch with your astral body. So here's what you might want to do. You want to get yourself in a calm place. You want to breathe and, feel calm. And you can do it when you're almost ready to fall asleep. That's when you're naturally that way. But you can just breathe and get calm and imagine that that you have a light inside you and it goes out. Maybe ask your angels, which we all have to be close, but you don't want to open yourself up to some sort of nonsense. So bring up this light, and then just imagine, because imagination, for the 100th time, is the bridge from one reality to another. Okay? And you imagine, for example, that now you just imagine your body, and then you imagine that you're very, very small, or getting small. Imagine that you're so small now, that you're like the size of a little mouse. And you can imagine that you're going over and looking under a door frame or under imagine what it feels like to scamper around. Just imagine. Then imagine you come back to yourself and you breathe, and then maybe imagine you're getting bigger. Imagine the whole room is like filled up with you now, just like Alice in Wonderland. You can do that, and very often, that will help you to get a sense, again, of that astral body. You can do it if you want to and see how you feel about it. That actually made me remember something, which now I'm actually forgetting. Oh, yeah, before we did this weird thing happens. Very often, I started years ago, not very often, I minded my own business, as I often do, and this weird thing happened where I started to grow. I got a lot taller, and I could feel this sensation in my body. Actually, it was not a bad sensation, and it was just bizarre. I was growing physically, and I could do it. I could do it on purpose. I would think it, and it would happen, and I was making people watch. It was like, hey, y'all, watch this, and it would happen, and I would do it. It started happening without me doing things. It's like people would come see me and leave, and I'd stand up and I'd be 6 inches taller. And I noticed that they would be looking at me weird, like they're looking up at me where we were the same height. But anyway, I started doing it on purpose. And then, somebody actually says, well, what are you going to do with that? And the proper answer should have been, I don't know yet. But I was intimidated by that. And then my husband started to cry every time I did it. I am not making that up. So we were at McDonald's. It's like, hey, James, watch this. And it's like, I just wish you wouldn't do that. Well, anyway, then she comes around. We start hanging out and being buddies. She started doing it. It was just bizarre. People around me, well, her. It was actually, I don't think anybody else. She started doing it. So to this day, when she comes around, sometimes we'll come in, we're the same height. Sometimes it's like, one will go up, the other go down. I'm assuming, because I don't know everything, that is our astral body stretching and coming down according to whatever needs maybe met. Now, I wish I had more control like I did, but when I started letting other people's opinion disqualify me from my own resources, I think it caused me to lose something that might have been useful for healing. I could have maybe pushed that energy to someone to maybe separate their energy and then let it come back together again, maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying. But if it's meant to be, I'll get it back. But it does still happen randomly all the time.
Do you think that most of us are out of our bodies when we're asleep anyway?
We cavort with spirits and otherworldly beings when we're out of our body. We don't remember.
When we're asleep.
When we are asleep, we cavort with spiritual beings. Those that have gone on. That's why sometimes you might wake up and you think of somebody that's passed on. It's like they're in the room. Maybe you smell them. Maybe you remember a bit of a dream. Maybe you remember a whole dream. And it's not the same kind of regular dream. It's got more oomph to it. So yeah, you may be doing all grades of stuff. Now, you might lose consciousness of this, but whatever they gave you, whatever energy was there, it's there when you need it. So you might have that calm, or you might have that opportunity, or you might have that assurance, whatever. You might have a warning even, who knows? But yeah, you are definitely out there doing, whatever it is you do, and I think it's a normal, natural thing. And like I said, some people will have dream, and it's an early morning when you're half awake, have a sleep dream. That's where the psychic stuff is very powerful, and that's when you might get the most stuff that makes sense to you, that actually is important. But everybody's different, and you have to learn how to recognize what it is, to you.
Let me just tell you about this, a couple of books that I read about out-of-body experiences. I just want to get your thoughts. I mentioned this guy before. His name's Robert Monroe.
I am going to, by the way, be fanning with a pack of Kool-Aid because hot flash is happening and I can't take it. So I wanted you to know what's going on. Okay, go ahead and I'll read what you
I
got.
think I'm having an out-of-body experience. I'm beside of somebody who's fanning themselves with a pack of Kool-Aid.
It's what's available, people. Lord help us. Go ahead.
Okay. There's this guy named Robert Monroe, and back in the 60s, he started having out-of-body experiences. First, he didn't mean to do it, and then he learned to control it, and he developed a technique not too different from what you're talking about, but it's a lot about the imagination. Then he would roll out and flip over and all this kind of stuff. But he wrote one book in the early 70s called Journeys Out of the Body, and then another one in the early 80s called Far Journeys. But what I wanted to ask you about is, once he got really good at it and went out of his body just about any time he wanted to, he found that there were different layers of going out. And at first it was just, floating around the world that he knew and seeing people doing stuff and he could come back in his body and say, hey, I saw you at 2 o'clock, you were on the phone drinking a glass of wine. And they said, you're right, how did you know that? But then later, as he controlled it more and learned more, he found that layer where some type of demonic beings were. I mean,
that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. And then he even got beyond that. He had to travel through a band that around our reality that actually sounded like, to him, the thoughts of every person on earth, all of the inner chatter of everybody on earth. He had to pass through that. And finally, when he got outside of that, is when he actually, out of body, made contact with other types of consciousness. Does all that sound feasible to you?
Yeah, all of that sounds right to me. It's like you have to be careful because I do think that this is something I want to say you'd want to walk, don't run, because I do think could be a lot of damage done to a person like this. But yeah, very often we can do what like we could create an what do you call it, an episode, I can't think of the right words, where you go into this maybe another realm, like you open a door in your mind and you maybe take a guide, or you just go in and you imagine places, and they kind of become real in this reality. And while you're there, you may meet your guides, you may have things happen, come to you. You also may meet bad things, which could represent your inner demons that you have to battle. I'll set that aside. And yes, you can actually send messages to a person. I need to get a job. I'm going to tell the interviewer, please hire me. And you can't do this without permission. You never want to. You can sometimes go, like she said, into somebody else's abode, like maybe I did when I went in with Chewbacca or whatever. You want to...
Wait.
You said there was a giant furry being.
Okay, I did not make the connection with Chewbacca.
Okay, so
sorry.
So anyway, what you want to do is you want to never do anything without permission. People do not need you to be spying on them. And when you send a psychic message, it's when you're half awake, half asleep. You actually can say to somebody, I need this or I need that. You'll feel it bounce back if you go too far. You cannot be like send some message to somebody you love, please love me back. It's going to bounce back, okay? But you can sometimes say, I need to talk to you. This is what I need to talk to you about, and kind of imagine it. And it's a way to send that energy to that other person. It's a back door to the mind kind of thing. And probably akin somehow to astral projection, because it's all soul related. It's all part of that world, that energy. Also, go ahead, I can tell you a story right about before we leave about the aliens in my bedroom.
Well, you can't just drop that and not tell us, so go for it.
Because I think I possibly have early dementia at this point, because my brain is going. It's not fun at all to try to remember stuff. But anyway, hopefully it's not that. But anyway, one time, a lot of my stories start with, one time I was in my bed, I was going to sleep. I was asleep, actually. It's back when I had a house phone. That's important. And I must have been talking, like, because it was in the bed, and James wasn't home that night. I don't know why. So anyway, I'm sleeping, and I hear, like, if you dial, back then, remember if you dial a computer and you get a computer, that dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, all that sounds, or like if you accidentally dial somebody a fax machine and it would make those crazy computer noises. So I'm laying there and I'm hearing like those noises, and I thought I had like rolled on my phone and made something crazy happen, So I'm trying to get a hold of my phone, and it wasn't that dark in my room. It was dark, but not that dark. But I saw two figures standing there beside the bed. One was about, I'm guessing, 4 or 5 feet. The other was about 3.5 feet. It seems like the taller one had a strap over his shoulder, like some sort of thing attached to the strap. And this is the weird part, because I see this. It's in shadow, but it's obvious what it is. And the strange thing is, rather than hit the ceiling, because I am easily startled, I should have been freaked out. I was not asleep. I was almost asleep, but I wasn't. I woke up with that noise, and I saw that, and I just thought, oh, that's what they sound like. I went back to sleep. So I don't even know what to tell you. That happened. Evidently, there is something about that sound that maybe were coming from that box, or that thing.
It kind of reminds me of that movie, Signs.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that happened. And here, have a story from Angela. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I just saw a comment float by a while ago about somebody's sister learned about astral projection in the 4th grade, which is pretty wild. But it made me want to ask you, I guess just like so many other spiritual things, kids are probably more apt to just travel out of body and not think twice about it.
Yeah, I think we do all sorts of things, especially 6 and under, because we're not being confined yet to this earthly experience in the way that we are when we're older.
Do you think sometimes we just kind of slip in and slip out real quick? Because sometimes I have the thought, and I know we all kind of zone out when we're driving or something, but sometimes I have this feeling that I've been gone for a little bit, and I just pop back in.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I think there's a lot of people like you, and like my daughter who's watching, I know she does, that actually just, I'm done with being human for about 5 minutes, I'm gone. Sometimes I think when we are, like you said, when we're driving a car like that, and you just get someplace, you remember getting there, we are in that zone where we are very highly psychic, but yeah, we're also maybe a little in, a little out. When we're in that place. And I think, as we talked before, maybe it's sometimes a time warp, maybe we're just stepping ahead in our own time, or and then sometimes we're, who knows what realm that we might have stuck our big toe in.
Yeah. Well, just to follow up, just to kind of put a bow on the stuff I was talking about Robert Monroe, in case it triggered anybody's curiosity. He also founded an institute where he taught people to travel out of body. He established teams of people who went out of body for good. They went to find out how to live more fulfilling lives and to understand our existence more. And it's still around. It's the Monroe Institute in Virginia. But here's the answer to the question that people might have, like, why haven't I heard about this before? Because somewhere along the way, he attracted the attention of the military. And he actually trained military people how to travel out of body. They were sending people up to him to do that. So when you read the government and the establishment poo-poos about stuff like this, that's just another underscore that that's all BS. They're doing it.
They have to, because other major countries are doing it and have been doing it forever, and you got to keep up. You got to keep up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that kind of sums up the out-of-body experience. Now we're over half an hour. Do you feel good now? And we also talked about walk-ins, but that might be such a big subject we want to keep it till next week.
Yeah, that's a big subject. Let's do that later, because they probably want to talk about that for a long time.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a quick question before we go? Anybody?
But I think the out-of-body experience stuff is just, I've been so interested in that since high school. One of my little boyfriends when I was in high school said he went out of body. There used to be a little technique that we read about back then, that you would just find a spot on the ceiling or something and focus on it until you started just tripping out on staring at the same thing. And he did that, and he said he went to this place in his mind where there were people covered with feathers playing basketball.
That's different. That's interesting.
So I don't know.
I've had a lot of people tell me stuff, and it's funny because somebody else had mentioned something to me that involved feathered beings. So actually, that's.
Well, supposedly there's a race of ETs that are interacting with humans, and they're avian, as they say. They're bird-like creatures.
There are. I just think, again, caution. Don't do anything unless you feel very comfortable with that. Don't do anything because we said it. We're just talking about stuff that we have found out about.
See what Angie's saying right there? when she drives by home, sometimes she feels like she can telepathically see into that home. You know, Angie, I feel that some way. Not that I can see into the home, but sometimes I will drive by or pass a car, and for a minute I can smell. This is so weird. I can smell what the inside of that car smells like.
That's crazy. I don't do that. That's very interesting.
Betty, what do you think about what Angie just
Same
said?
thing I think with you. I think that's obviously you're tapping into something, and that's something that is a gift for you, or just part of who you are, that you're able to do that.
So is she kind of out of body, or is that somewhere?
No, I think yes and no. I think that she is using her extrasensory perception, which is a natural part of human beings, I think, and maybe that is something that she's just more attuned to than the average person, that she can feel, smell, or know, or whatever, these places in a way that most people can't. And maybe if we tried, we could, but maybe it's just for whatever reason. And somebody else said smells definitely. You're right, smells.
Isn't that interesting?
Very often I'll be doing a session with somebody and I will smell something so strong, and very often we all smell it, but sometimes there'll just be one of us smells it, and I think that part of our brain is very close to whatever part of our brain is picking up this other stuff that's just out of our, actually more well-known five senses.
You remember that it's not been too long that I was here when we were in your living room, where she does the readings, and we both were struck by this strong smell of ether, like an old-timey doctor's office. You remember that?
I did not remember that, but my kids spent the night with me this past weekend, and I had to go through the living room. She's sleeping on the couch to let the dogs out, and that's what we smelled. It was overpowering. I can't even say that word. And she smelled it, and she's like, what is going on? I'm smelling it. I'm thinking, what is going on? It wasn't like, it was definitely chemical. I had forgot.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did. I mean, she did. And later, we came back the next day, and she's bringing all these cleaning supplies, because it's like, I said, it's not there now. It's not there. The smell is gone, but it was overwhelming. So, I think maybe we had a visitor. Maybe that smell would make sense to that being. That, a lot of times when people pass that smoke, family and friends and whatnot, or me, have smelled cigarette smoke that we would associate. Or sometimes, and I love this, there's a lovely floral scent, which I think is maybe a sign of an angel or a higher level presence. So, and I love it when that happens.
Okay. Oh, just one more thing about smell. The house where I used to live on Painter's Gap in Rutherford County, which if any of y'all are familiar with that's a really beautiful area, but there's some funny energy out there. But one time in that house, we became overcome by the smell. It smelled like a sweaty guy who'd been outside, like sawing wood or something, and doused it with Old Spice. Yeah. I can't explain it other than that. And it was, we had to open the windows, and then it was gone.
That's happened here a couple of times. Not with the Old Spice, but the body odor guy. I think
he gets around.
I think he's in the basement here, and I think he comes up. But yeah, if you associate that with somebody in life, I think they might carry that, because maybe they're still kind of in between worlds, and they have not given up all the stuff yet that that belongs here. Now everybody goes straight, I think, to the light. Also, darn it. Darn this dementia thing that's going on with me. I had something to tell. Oh, I know what it is. We're saved. The thing about, we were talking about the smells and stuff, but we're also talking about out of bodies and all these things. Here's a little weird thing that has happened when I was doing this growing thing, which, like I said, it's still there, just not as, I can't really control it like I did. But this would happen, and I think we see out of body people, spirits, otherworldly beings in this way. You know how it looks when heat comes up off a road, right? Those heat marks. Whenever this would happen with me, and I was controlling it, people told me, and I actually finally got to see it myself, and I looked down one time, and it was under my feet. It's like the floor started feeling alive, and I looked down. It was like it had become almost like water. And the wall behind me, and this was other people seeing it, okay? It was like heat coming up off a road. It was like almost like the energy was becoming fluid or something. And yeah, that happened. I have witnesses, but I think that maybe sometimes you're talking about here seeing or smelling somebody's house when you go by. You might also experience stuff like that whenever you are seeing like that kind of Waverly energy. I think also a lot of people have seen spirits, since we're talking about orbs and whatnot. We have seen those in that same way. We have I've seen them walking. To me, I feel like they're walking around. I have sat and watched like this energy move around, and I know it's a spirit, not an orb form, but in that form, because again, layers, many layers, and maybe that makes more sense to some. And honestly, maybe it's even a cloaking device used by some beings that are just hanging out with us, taking notes to report back to the home world.
Interesting.
I do think they take notes to report back to the home world. I actually think there's some humans that harbor alien spirits who are having a human experience as a probe, and they're actually out of body and not reporting back to the home world is what it is to be human. Because I decided I'd just go full weird on you. I think a lot of this stuff, but I'm just sharing what I think.
Some people may be having an out of body experience from their existence some other planet or some other realm here. And of course, when we're in this body, in this consciousness, in this moment, the deal is we don't remember anything else. So this
can't learn your lessons. You can't be doing this life right if you're cheating by carrying in all the extracurricular knowledge, although you might get a glimpse of it once in a while to give you a little look-see. I fully think that that's what she is.
A probe.
Yeah, I said.
And see, that's why we're doing this little show, because I can really get the inside scoop now.
But anyway, that's
they'll be so pleased today when I report back.
Yeah, they will. I wonder if I'm in danger. But anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it for today.
Okay. Well, next time walk-ins. That's going to be fun too. And
I'm happy when you people let me know what you're interested in. And of course, it's just our opinion. Google it. That's my new password. Google it.
But believe nothing that you read or see.
Yeah, nothing. But you can believe us because we're just telling you this is our experience. We're not telling you what to believe, okay?
I mean, online you have to use a lot of filters.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got our packs of Kool-Aid.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
So we'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. And let me tell you, a few of you have been so kind to email me or message me to tell me that you appreciate what we're doing. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your feedback. If we get feedback, we'll keep on doing this. But if we don't, we'll probably just do it for the summer and call it "This Was Fun" and be done. So let us know. Okay? We need to know. Thank you.